There's a very specific, suffocating type of silence that happens at 3:14 in the morning when you are waiting to find out if your children are dead. It's a silence so heavy it physically presses against your chest. I spent 3 straight days drowning in that silence. 3 days calling police stations, staring at a phone screen until my eyes burned, completely convinced I had outlived my own 2 daughters. But I didn't outlive them. I just lived long enough to watch them look me dead in the eye and tell me they deliberately let me suffer. And the moment they said those words, the father they knew died, and a completely different man took his place. My name is Marcus Vance. For the last 30 years, I've built a commercial freight and logistics empire out of Denver, Colorado. If you order something heavy, expensive, and fragile, there's a good chance one of my trucks moved it. I didn't inherit a dime of this. I was a product of the state of Colorado's foster care system. I aged out at 18 years old with a black trash bag full of hand-me-down clothes, $100 in my pocket, and profound, terrifying understanding of what it means to be completely and utterly alone in the world. Nobody was coming to save me. Nobody cared if I ate, slept, or survived. When I met my wife, Elena, and we eventually had our 2 girls, Chloe and Maya, I made a silent vow over their hospital bassinets. I swore on my life that my daughters would never know the cold, hollow terror of the void I grew up in. I promised to be the ultimate safety net. I paid for the best schools. I funded the study abroad trips. When they graduated, I didn't just buy them cars. I bought them a foundation. And when Chloe, at 26, decided she wanted to start a luxury wellness brand in Austin, Texas, with her younger sister Maya as her VP, I didn't hesitate. I quietly signed my name as the primary corporate guarantor on their massive 10,000 square foot commercial warehouse lease. I used Vance Logistics' flawless credit rating to secure their vendor supply lines. I was the invisible steel spine holding their entire dream together. They got to play startup founders, and I got the peace of mind knowing my girls were safe, secure, and thriving. I gave them everything I never had, and in return, they gave me the worst 72 hours of my existence. Welcome to the channel. If you're a parent, or if you've ever loved someone so much you forgot to protect yourself from them, pull up a chair. You're going to want to hear this. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. The nightmare started over a simple piece of paper. It was a Tuesday morning. My commercial insurance broker emailed me a compliance form for the Austin warehouse. To keep the liability policy active, I needed Chloe to confirm the date their warehouse fire suppression system was last inspected. It was a completely routine, boring question. A 30-second phone call. I dialed Chloe's number from my office, sipping my coffee, watching the trucks roll out of the yard. It rang twice and went straight to voicemail. No problem. She's the CO. She's busy. I shot her a quick text. Hey, sweetie, need the fire inspection date for the warehouse insurance. Deadline is Friday. Call me when you have a sec. Love you. Wednesday morning rolled around. No call. No text. I called Maya, figuring she was with her sister. Voicemail. I texted her. Nothing. By Thursday afternoon, the annoyance had quietly morphed into first dark shade of anxiety. My daughters were in their 20s. They went out, they got busy, they ignored their phones. But they had never, not once in their lives, ignored me for 48 hours straight, especially not both of them at the exact same time. I called Chloe again. Voicemail. I called Maya again. Voicemail. I went home that night and found Elena standing in the kitchen, staring blankly out the window over the sink. She hadn't touched the dinner she'd plated for herself. Have you heard from the girls? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Elena slowly turned to look at me, and her face was pale. No, she whispered. I've called them 5 times today. Neither of them is answering. I checked their social media. They haven't posted anything since Monday. Marcus, something feels wrong. You have to understand the mind of a parent. When there's a vacuum of information, your brain doesn't fill it with logic. It fills it with horror. By Friday morning, the insurance deadline was entirely forgotten. We were in full-blown panic. I had called Chloe 15 times. Elena had called Maya 20 times. We tried calling their friends in Austin. Every single person either didn't answer or gave us evasive, stammering excuses about not having seen them. My chest felt like it was wrapped in barbed wire. Every time my phone buzzed with a spam call, my heart stopped, expecting to hear a Texas highway patrolman on the other end, asking me to identify a vehicle. I had survived a childhood of abandonment, built an empire, and stared down ruthless corporate sharks, but Friday night broke me. I sat on the edge of our bed at 3 a.m., holding my phone, silently weeping. Elena was curled up beside me, physically shaking. "Pack a bag," I told her, my voice gravelly and hollow. "We're going to Austin. Now." We caught the first flight out of Denver at 6 a.m. I don't remember much of the flight. I just remember Elena clutching my hand, so hard her fingernails dug into my skin. We were playing a silent, horrific game of mental roulette. Car crash, home invasion, kidnapping, carbon monoxide leak. We landed in Austin just past 9 a.m. The Texas heat was already blistering, radiating off the tarmac. I bypassed the rental car counter and grabbed an overpriced black SUV service. I gave the driver the address to the warehouse. "Just get us there as fast as legally possible," I told him. The drive took 40 minutes. We pulled into the commercial district, my stomach tied in 1,000 burning knots. As the SUV rounded the corner toward their building, I was bracing myself to see police tape. I was bracing myself for ambulances. Instead, I saw a red carpet. The massive glass roll-up doors of the warehouse were thrown wide open. There were 2 food trucks parked in the lot. A DJ was set up on a stage inside, pumping deep house music that vibrated the pavement. Waiters in crisp black uniforms were walking around carrying trays of mimosas and artisanal coffee. There were at least 200 people there. Photographers, influencers with ring lights. It was a launch party, a massive, incredibly expensive, perfectly orchestrated PR event. I stepped out of the SUV, Elena right behind me, for about 10 seconds. The only thing I felt was a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated relief. The kind of relief that makes your knees weak. They're alive. Thank God they're alive. We walked up the red carpet, completely out of place in our rumpled travel clothes. We bypassed a confused security guard and stepped into the air-conditioned warehouse. And that is when I saw them. Chloe and Maya were standing near a massive neon sign that read Oral Wellness. They were dressed in stunning, tailored designer suits, holding microphones, laughing and posing for a photographer alongside a slick-looking guy in a turtleneck who I recognized as Julian, Chloe's new boyfriend. Elena let out a sob of relief and started walking toward them. "Chloe, Maya saw us first. I will never, for the rest of my life, forget the look that washed over my youngest daughter's face. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't relief. It was pure, unfiltered disgust. She tapped Chloe on the shoulder and whispered something. Chloe turned, saw us, and her smile vanished. She handed her drink to Julian, marched straight toward us, and grabbed my arm, aggressively pulling me and Elena out of the sightline of photographers and behind a velvet partition. "What the hell are you doing here?" Chloe hissed. Her voice wasn't just angry. It was venomous. Elena was crying, trying to hug her. "Chloe, oh my God, you're safe. We've been calling for 3 days. You wouldn't pick up. We thought you were in an accident. We thought you were dead." Chloe literally pushed her mother's hands away. She took a step back, her eyes darting around to make sure none of her VIP guests were watching this interaction. "Are you insane?" Chloe snapped. "You flew here because I didn't answer my phone? Do you have any idea how toxic and suffocating you are?" I stood there, frozen. "Toxic? Chloe, we thought you were dead. Why didn't you answer a single call? Or a text?" Maya stepped out from behind the curtain, crossing her arms, looking at us like we were gum on the bottom of her shoe. "Because we blocked you, Dad," Maya said, rolling her eyes. Obviously. The warehouse music thumped in the background, the sound of 200 people laughing and drinking champagne on my dime echoed off the walls. But all I could hear was a ringing in my ears. "We blocked you. Why?" I asked. My voice didn't even sound like my own. It sounded thin, hollow. Chloe let out a dramatic, exasperated sigh. "Because this is our official founder's launch week. Our entire PR narrative is that we are fiercely independent, self-made female entrepreneurs who built this from the ground up. Julian invited high-level angel investors today. The last thing we need is our boomer parents showing up, hovering over us, and ruining our aesthetic. Ruining your aesthetic? Elena whispered. Her voice was trembling. She reached into her purse. She had brought a vintage gold locket, a family heirloom, that she had spent months restoring, intended to give it to Chloe to celebrate her business launch. Her hands were shaking so badly, she couldn't even pull it out of the bag. We told our PR team we estranged ourselves from our toxic upbringing to build this empire, Chloe continued, completely ignoring her mother's tears. It's a great story. It sells. We needed you guys to back off and give us space. So we initiated a boundary-setting exercise we learned from our executive coach. We muted your numbers. It's called a digital detox. A digital detox, I repeated. Yes, Maya chimed in. And you completely violated our boundaries by flying here. It is so humiliating. You need to leave. Right now, before Julian's investors see you and ask who you are. I want to pause right here. There's a defining moment in every person's life where the veil drops. I looked at my two daughters. I looked at the 10,000 square foot warehouse I was secretly guaranteeing. I looked at the catered food I was indirectly paying for. I remember the nights I drove a freight truck through blizzards in the Rockies just to make sure their college tuition was paid in full. I remember the vows I made to protect them from the coldness of the world. And I realized with absolute, terrifying clarity that I hadn't protected them from the world. I had sheltered them so completely that they became the monsters I was trying to protect them from. They saw my name on their phones. They knew we were terrified, and they chose to let us suffer because our fear didn't fit their PR aesthetic. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. The boy who grew up in the foster system took over. The boy who knew exactly how to survive in the cold. I reached out, gently took Elena's trembling hand, and I looked Chloe dead in the eyes. You want to be self-made? I asked, my voice dropping to a dead, icy calm. Congratulations. You are. I turned around, guided my weeping wife out the door, walked right past the security guard, and got back into the black SUV. Take us back to the airport. I told the driver, if you are enjoying this story and want to hear how this ends, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It helps out a lot, and you aren't going to want to miss this next part. The flight back to Denver was a different kind of silence. Elena cried until she fell asleep against my shoulder. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I ordered a black coffee, opened my laptop on the tray table, and paid $24.99 for the in-flight Wi-Fi. By the time we touched down in Colorado, the grief was completely gone. The only thing left in my chest was absolute surgical precision. They wanted a boundary. I was about to give them a brick wall. At 8 a.m. the next morning, I walked into the downtown offices of Arthur Vance, my corporate attorney. Arthur is a shark. He's been my legal muscle for 20 years. I sat down in his leather chair and handed him a folder. Arthur, I said, I need you to execute a complete withdrawal of the corporate guarantor status on the Austin warehouse lease, effective immediately. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Marcus, if we pull the guarantor backing on a commercial lease of that size, the property management group will automatically flag the account. They'll run a localized credit check on the LLC. The girl startup doesn't have the capital to back a 10-year commercial lease. I know, I said. The landlord will issue a notice of default within 48 hours, Arthur warned. They'll demand a 6-figure cash deposit, or they will lock the doors and begin eviction proceedings. Make the call, I said. What about the vendor lines of credit? Arthur asked, tapping his pen. You back their inventory shipments with Vance Logistics corporate credit. Sever them, I said, without blinking. Notify the suppliers that Vance Logistics assumes zero liability for any future shipments to Aura Wellness. Any outstanding invoices are to be billed directly to the girl's LLC. Arthur stared at me for a long moment. He didn't ask questions. He just picked up his phone. It'll be done by noon. Here is a reality check about the business world that my daughters were completely oblivious to. When you play founder using someone else's money, you aren't a CEO. You're a tourist. The collapse wasn't slow. It was a guillotine. I didn't hear a word from them for 4 days. They were riding high on their launch party. But on Wednesday morning, the dominoes fell. My phone rang at 11:15 a.m. It was Chloe. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A minute later, Maya called. I sent it to voicemail. Then came the text. Dad, call me right now. The landlord just showed up with a padlock. Dad, the supply vendors just canceled our autumn inventory drop. They're demanding $80,000 cash up front. What is going on? Dad, answer your phone. I sat at my desk, watching the messages roll in. For 3 days, they had intentionally ignored my calls while I thought they were dead. I waited exactly 3 hours before I replied with a single text. I'm honoring your boundaries. You are self-made founders now. Handle it. The fallout was spectacular, and I heard the details through the grapevine over the next few weeks. Without my corporate backing, the commercial landlord didn't waste time. Austin real estate is cutthroat. The landlord gave them 72 hours to produce a $150,000 security deposit. They didn't have it. Julian, the slick tech bro boyfriend who was supposed to be bringing in angel investors, suddenly vanished the second he realized the bank of Dad was permanently closed. He ghosted Chloe entirely. The vendors froze their accounts. The PR team quit when their retainer bounced. The empire they had built completely evaporated in less than 14 days. You can't be a self-made female founder when your only actual skill is spending your father's money. Exactly 3 weeks after the launch party, a battered, rented U-Haul truck pulled into my driveway in Denver. I was sitting on the front porch with Elena, drinking iced tea. We watched as the truck doors opened and Chloe and Maya climbed out. They looked exhausted, disheveled, and furious. They marched up the driveway, ready for war. Are you happy now? Chloe screamed, tears of rage streaming down her face. You destroyed my life. You bankrupted my company over a stupid misunderstanding. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Maya was right behind her. You are a vindictive psychopath. We lost the warehouse. We lost everything. You need to call Arthur right now and fix this, or we are never speaking to you again. I didn't stand up. I didn't raise my voice. I just took a sip of my iced tea and looked at the 2 strangers standing on my lawn. Fix what? I asked calmly. The lease, the credit lines. Chloe demanded, stomping her foot like a toddler. Julian dumped me because of you. You ruined our business. I didn't touch your business, I said. I just removed myself from it. If your business couldn't survive 14 days without my money, it wasn't a business. It was an allowance. Chloe gasped, her face turning red. Mom, she pleaded, looking at Elena. Tell him he's being insane. Tell him to fix this. I watched my wife, the same woman who had spent months restoring that locket, the same woman who had collapsed on the floor in tears, terrified her daughters were dead. Elena looked at Chloe with eyes so cold I barely recognized them. Your father and I are on a digital detox, Elena said smoothly. We're setting boundaries. You ladies are fiercely independent. I suggest you figure out. Maya's jaw actually dropped. You can't do this to us. We are your children. You owe us. I finally stood up. I walked to the edge of the porch, looking down at the 2 women I had sacrificed my entire life to protect. I owed you a safe childhood, I said, my voice dangerously low. And I gave you that. I gave you every advantage I never had. But I do not owe you my dignity. You looked me in the eye and told me I was toxic for loving you. You let your mother weep in terror, so you could have a cool PR story for a guy who left you the second the money dried up. I pointed at the U-Haul. Get off my property. And do not ever mistake my generosity for weakness again. They tried to argue. They tried to scream. But when they looked at my face, and they looked at their mother, they finally realized a horrifying truth. The safety net was gone, and it was never, ever coming back. They got back into the U-Haul and drove away. That was 8 months ago. They are currently renting a 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, working entry-level corporate jobs, learning the hard way what the real world actually costs. They try to call occasionally. We don't answer. But I didn't just stop at the business. Last month, I sat down with Arthur one more time. We dissolved my existing family trust. My estate is currently valued at just over $18 million. I rewrote the entire thing. If Elena outlives me, she gets it all. If I outlive her, it stays with me. But when we are both gone, not a single red cent goes to Chloe or Maya. Instead, the entirety of my estate is being placed into an irrevocable trust for Colorado Foster Care Aging Out Initiative. It will buy cars, pay rent, and fund college tuition for kids who are thrown out into the streets at 18 with their belongings in trash bags. Kids who actually know what it means to have nothing. Kids who would give their right arm to have a father call them, just to check in. I spent my life trying to protect my daughters from the cold, but it turns out the cold is the only thing that teaches you how to appreciate the warmth. If you love this story, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe for more. Don't forget to leave a comment. I read every single one. Take care of your people, but make sure they take care of you, too. See you in the next video.